Texas high school football is right around the corner, if it's not here already. And there are obviously a lot of eyes on the players, a lot of eyes on the coaches, but there's another very important group of people who make Texas high school football happen. We are proud to bring in our second annual Officials Roundtable as we welcome in Bill Theodore. He is the Assistant Executive Director of the Texas Association of Sports Officials and an official in the Fort Worth chapter. Hi, Bill.
Hello.
And Rod McLain, who is the Football Vice President of TASO and the President of the Fort Worth chapter. Rod, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having us.
So, I guess first and foremost, like as a media member, I'm very excited about football getting here. I know there are a lot of fans who are excited about football getting here, coaches, players. Do officials get excited about football getting here, or is this just it's just work?
They get really excited.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about, coaches, football practice just started the beginning of August. We've been going since April. Mm-hmm. We've had chapter meetings, we had clinics, spring scrimmages, but since the end of June, we've been meeting every week, talking about football. And last week we finally got on the field during scrimmages, so they're crazy waiting for next week to be here.
So then in a lot of ways it's because TASO is not, obviously we should say, it's not just an organization of football officials. It's an organization of all sports officials across high school football. 6 different sports. But, obviously here in Texas, football is king for media members and for a lot of communities. Do you get the feeling that, not that the officials in TASO don't care about the other sports. Obviously they do. They wouldn't do it if they didn't. But that football is kind of that the sweet spot we all wait for football to roll around.
Football has the most officials with almost 6,000. Some of them are multi-sport where they'll work basketball or baseball or softball, soccer, I guess if they're so inclined. So it's – football drives the bus to the football official, but the excitement that they bring to the table, the devotion, the dedication. I mean, it's no different than that first year coach that's starting in a program, or that kid that's graduated from the 8th grade to the 9th grade, and now he's going to start playing freshman football. I mean, it's the same kind of feeling, the butterflies and everything. So
and to keep kind of drawing parallels, I know coaches finish up the season and they're always thinking about next season. They're always thinking about that. What, as far as an off season for football officials is concerned, what does that look like as far as preparing for the next year?
A lot of it kind of starts around February, because in February we start hearing talk about, here are potential rule changes. You'll see those kind of leak through, and you'll see a piece of them. Some of them actually become rule changes, some of them don't. So right then in February, football officials are starting to look and think of, okay, how's this gonna affect us? What do we need to do differently? How's that gonna affect our mechanics and things like that? So once that comes, you're already starting to think about it and think, where is that gonna affect us? And then that rolls right into our meetings and our training and our clinic. Bigger picture, early in the season, in January, we're starting to talk TASO, talking about mechanics and changes that we might want to make there, potential rule changes and things like that. So we're already putting that together, working on the clinics that'll go on across the state. So for a lot of us, it doesn't really stop either. It just keeps going once the season's over. One
of the big topics we had last year when we had you guys in, Bill, was the shortage of officials. And I know that I think I'll speak on behalf of the media brethren. I think that the media's done a decent job of getting out the message and saying.
You've done a great job.
Oh, okay, fine. We'll say that. We've done a great job of getting out the message of that there's a need for officials. Have you felt like you've seen an increase, you've seen people getting more involved in TASO, and you've seen an increase in numbers, and where do we stand as far as officials, the numbers are concerned?
We've seen an increase. We can always use more. Aside from the media, which y'all are our biggest voice, but the next biggest voice is actually the coaches. We have a program called START, which is Students Today or Referees Tomorrow. And so what we tell our coaches whenever we go and visit them at coaching clinics or the coaching association convention or whatever, pick 2 or 3 of your kids that you know are not going to have a ride to a scholarship for athletics to play football or basketball or baseball, but that want to stay involved. Tell us who they are. Tell us where they're going to be. Send us their contact information. We'll reach out to them. We'll explain to them the program, get them involved. If they're going off to school, we'll put them in contact with the local chapter. They're not going to get rich, but they're going to have spending money in their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be able to, and they can work their schedule at school around the officiating. There's such a need that, we're not going to turn them away. And so we've gotten quite a few from coaches that say, hey, I've got this kid, he's going to be going to school at UT Pan American and he wants to do soccer. Hey, great. We're going to hook him up with the chapter down there in the valley and get him fixed up. It's a win-win for everybody. The average age of our officials association-wide is 50.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's younger than me. And the average age of a new official coming in is 39.
Mm-hmm.
And back 36 years ago when I started, the average age was, in your 20s. So we need to do a better job as older officials looking and grooming the people that are going to take our place.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No, I think that's a great point. And another thing we touched on last year, and I think it's just worth hammering home again, is I think from a fan perspective, I think they have a responsibility. Call it a they can do y'all a favor, right?
Yes.
By creating an environment in which people want to become officials, not just in the sense that you go up to a kid and you say, hey, you should go, individuals, but in making sure you go to the games and you act in a way that is not going to dissuade people from wanting to get yelled at, basically. Being an official is a difficult job, and I'm not here to tell anybody that it's going to be easy. But I do think that fans can do their part, Rod, in making sure that they're creating an environment that's going to allow that kid sitting in the stands or on the sideline to be like, hey, you know what? I may not be able to go play football at the next level, but I can stay involved and I can be an official.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I will tell you, over the last few years, we still hear stories and you still read about things that happen. But if I look at the games that I work,
Mm-hmm.
and in general, it's pretty good.
Mm.
It's we do get some of that respect and some of those positive things that happen, and that's just good. It's good for everybody. It's good for the teams. It's good for the officials. It's good for everybody that's there at the game. And the more that we can get to that, the better off it is for everyone.
It's Rod McLain and Bill Theodore of Tasso here on the second annual Officials Roundtable here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation. #TF Today. I want to go back to the state championship games. First, I guess one of the big things that we were really anticipating heading into these state championship games was the use of instant replay. It had been kind of beta tested the year before and then fully put into place. From y'all's perspective, and I know you guys had a close eye on this, how would you assess the use of the instant replay, how it was rolled out in its first year?
A complete success.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
A complete success. I meant to get the numbers before I drove.
It's okay.
Before I drove up here today to tell you. We had a stoppage in every game.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had, some reason, the number 18 is sticking out in my mind. Of all of the games, we had 18
I think that's right.
reversals.
Yeah.
Which means it was 18 different times that something may have gone wrong on the field, and we got it right. And at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal, is to get it right. We had one snafu from the replay booth where they had a foul on a kick out of bounds,
Mm-hmm.
and they let the ball be re-kicked from the 30 instead of the 35. And that was something that so easy. It was so easy that it got overlooked.
Yeah, it was an unforced error.
The hard ones we're going to get right. That was one easy that from the replay booth and the officials on the field, it got overlooked. It didn't affect anything. No harm, no foul, if you will. But for all of the people that were sitting on the edge of their seats, and wondering what was going to happen. And I remember the first replay that we went to was in the 6-man game, the first game, and it was like, it just went off without a hitch. And so it's like, God, if they're all like this, how easy is this going to be?
Were you guys, we've talked about this. Your number one goal is to get it right, but this is a brave new world with instant replay. When that first replay came down, was there nerves? It's like, oh man, please work, please work.
I think everybody's heart stopped for a split second.
I think with every one of the stoppages.
Yeah.
You have to look at it this way. Those high school officials, they've never experienced anything like this. And before each game, the replay officials were in the locker room, and they spent a considerable amount of time telling them, this is how this is going to go. We're going to take care of it for you. All you have to do is say what we tell you to say, make the announcement, and it's going to be short and sweet, really easy. So when that first one went off, and I don't even remember what the play was, but everything happened just like it was supposed to, and it was, hey, this is easy to go. We had veteran officials that were the sideline communicators back to the replay booth, so they're there to help that official. I think the first 6-man game was a crew maybe out of Amarillo. Well, they don't have replay. Nobody did. So it was a learning curve, and they learned it on the fly. And there wasn't none of these, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, or please help. It was just it worked itself out. It took care of itself.
Yeah, I was actually, one of the things that impressed me is, look, we've all watched an NFL game, or we've all watched a college football game where it seems like there's an endless review, and you're just going, oh my gosh, can we please, I know they're trying to get every angle, they're trying to look at every little thing, but it also seemed to me that they were done in a relatively timely fashion, knowing full well that it's not going to be 15 seconds, but it felt like to me that they got in, they did their job, they came out, they made the announcement, we got the game back going. It felt like the timing aspect of the did not necessarily interfere with the flow of the game.
Yeah, I think it did, and I think a big part of that, those guys that were up in the booth, they're veteran college replay officials, so they're used to it, and that was a great help to the officials, especially the referee on the field, because they were used to it up in the booth. And you have somebody on the field that's really the first time they've ever done that. And they were great in kind of talking them through the process. And I thought they did a really good job and worked them very quickly.
There was no practice.
Yeah.
There was no, hey, let's draw up a scenario and go out and do this. Literally, those guys are in the locker room 2.5 hours before their scheduled kickoff time. The replay crew's in there at 2 hours. And they spend 45 minutes to an hour going through every aspect of how this is going to go. And so, if you look at the very last play of the very last game, the North Shore Duncanville.
I'm familiar.
The Hail Mary into the end zone and coming down for a score. And one of the criteria were that all scores are going to be reviewed, especially that one happened in the corner, on the side in the corner of the end zone. It went just like it was supposed to do.
Well, in that play, I'm glad you brought up that play, because I'll be honest, when after the shock wore off and I started thinking about that play, I was so glad that it was clear. I was so glad that there were definitive angles.
Completely.
And there was no doubt. There was no doubt that it was a catch. No doubt he was in bounds. No doubt he was behind the line of scrimmage. Everything was very clear, because I definitely thought about, and I'm sitting up there at the Fox set thinking, man, if there's like a bobble, or there's like a did it touch the ground or didn't it, like all we're going to hear about is the instant replay.
Right.
And so I think that was from I call it a PR perspective, whatever you want to call it, from getting people used to instant replay in high school football. That is a huge play, the most important play, arguably, and it was a undisputed win, I think, for instant replay to go out there and make sure the call was right. I thought that, like, to me, I had a little bit of relief when I saw those replays. Like, oh, okay, it's clear. There's not going to be any real, like, did they? Is there this little thing, one angle we're not seeing? It was clear from all angles.
Yeah.
It was really remarkable, and you know, it's the first time we ever announced the state champion.
That was the best ending to any game, and for all the reasons that you said, for having instant replay, being a part of the high school game, and where it goes from here, we'll see whether it trickles down to the semifinals or through all the playoff games, or eventually, like they do in Alabama, they're starting to use it in every one of their regular season games. Texas isn't there yet. I think, you know, we're on the cuffs. We'll get there. But for that particular game itself, everything that you've said or described is the reason that it works. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there should be no doubt now that, yes, this is a good thing for Texas high school football.
I think that last play was really confirmation of the whole process, all 4 days, that this is a good thing, and I'm glad that we got it here.
You know, and one last thing on the state championship games, you know, you brought up the great point that those booth officials are veterans. Those booth officials know what they're doing. I think it's also worth mentioning that these crews that are working the state championship games, I mean, these are the best of the best, you know, and these are really good, talented crews. And it's a, you know, we talk a lot about what a big deal it is for these coaches and these players to go to the state championship game. It's a big deal for these officials to be able to officiate a state championship game. Absolutely. That's a real feather in their cap in their career as well.
Yeah.
And so it's really remarkable to see. And I as a neutral observer, I was nervous about instant replay. I was like, oh boy, this is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to go really well, or it's going to be a disaster, and we're never going to hear the end of it. And
well, you have a chance to be glorified in public or crucified.
No.
You know, and so
and I think that's a part of replay a lot of folks don't understand too, is regardless of how slow you can see it and how many views, sometimes you just don't have it.
Right.
And so it's not the complete 100% cure. It is most of the time, but occasionally there are other times where it's just not there. You can't see it, and that's something a lot of folks don't remember.
Bill Theodore and Rod McLain here from Tasso here for the Officials Roundtable here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #TF Today. All right, you brought me this.
yes,
This feels
there's
like
a hint there.
I was going to say I feel like you're trying to get at something.
I'm being in a nice way.
This is the rule book for 2018, and we were talking beforehand. People are saying 2018. Where's the 2019 book? Hey, Bill, where's the 2019 book?
So a lot of people ask that. So the NCAA back years ago went to a 2-year rule cycle where they will publish the major rule changes in even-numbered years. The off-numbered years or odd-numbered years, they look at anything that needs to be looked at immediately as far as safety concern, player safety and whatnot. And so it's not generally referred to as a major rule change time. So when they publish the 2018, they do make a 2019 rule book. It's specific this year due to the 150-year anniversary of college football. But all the rules that are in the 2019 are in that 2018, except for a few of those safety changes in the inserts that we brought you, which is what we provide to everyone.
So then we have this,
and then you have that.
We have the exceptions change, rules and UIL exception changes. Worth mentioning for people who are unfamiliar, the UIL follows NCAA rules. That is the default. There are some things that they do a little bit differently. A few exceptions.
Yes.
But generally speaking, it's college football. It's NCAA rules.
And the only state in the United States to play
really
high school football under NCAA rules.
I don't think I knew that. I knew that
you learned something
I
today.
knew that they were. Man, I learn something every day.
Massachusetts and Louisiana were
Massachusetts and Louisiana,
and I think this season Massachusetts voted to go to the federation rules, and Louisiana did years ago.
And there are some key differences between federation rules and NCAA rules we don't necessarily need to get into, but this is the new changes coming up for 2019. From your perspective, Rod, what is the one that stands out to you? What's the one that you're certainly going to be thinking about?
There's actually three that are really standing out for me and for the officials, but I think the one the fans will notice the most is regarding targeting, because that's the one that they're going to see, they're going to recognize most, and it's going to, I think, have a big effect into what they're used to seeing last year regarding targeting and what they're going to see this year. The targeting foul itself didn't change. The foul of targeting is still the foul. Nothing there changed. What changed was the penalty. And so now we have actually two different penalties for targeting. One is a flagrant foul. One is a non-flagrant foul. For a non-flagrant targeting foul, it's still a 15-yard penalty, automatic first down if it's against the defense, but there's no player disqualification. Now, if a player gets two of those fouls, non-flagrant targeting fouls, with the second one, it includes a disqualification. So the flagrant targeting foul still includes disqualification just as it did last year. So the biggest change for us is trying to determine what's flagrant and what's non-flagrant. In the targeting rule itself, the rule book says when in doubt, it is a foul for targeting. And so if targeting is a very technical foul. There are a lot of things. There's two different targeting fouls. One involves contact with the crown of the helmet, eyebrows back. That's pretty straightforward. Player does contact there.
I think that's what
targeting.
I think that's what people, when you think of
spearing.
Targeting, that's the one that you think about. Yeah, spearing, exactly.
Yeah. The other targeting that's a little more difficult is there's a lot of pieces to it. You have contact against a defenseless player. The rule book tells us 11 different players that are termed defenseless. Passer, receivers, kick returners, a player receiving a blindside block. So they have certain defenseless players. And if that defenseless player is contacted in the head or neck area, that could be a targeting foul. But then we also, on the player that making the contact, you got to look for indicators. Did they launch, right? Did they go down and come up? Did they make contact forcibly with a shoulder or forearm, things like that? So there are a lot of pieces to that foul. And a lot of times for officials, it happens that fast. I mean, it is quick. We don't have the benefit of replay. We don't get to watch it frame by frame from 5 different angles. So we have to make it that quick. And it was difficult. And, the coaches, this is actually a UIL exception change, not the NCAA. So for us in high school football, the coaches were concerned that maybe we weren't calling targeting as many times as we probably should, because it was the penalty is very severe.
Yeah.
Disqualification of a player. And if you weren't completely 100% sure, it goes against everything an official does. We don't want to have a foul or throw a flag for a foul if we're not 100% sure.
Especially one that's going to have the kind of impact that this kind of penalty is going to have.
So to the UIL's credit, I think they put this change into the exceptions, knowing that this is a very critical player safety, things that we need to have out of the game, in hopes that as officials we'll make those calls when we need to make them, knowing that it's not always a disqualification. However, if a player does it twice, the second time he's disqualified. So in a way, that's kind of our replay. We don't get the benefit of it, but it gives us some room there. And I think it's honestly going to be really good.
And I think you mentioned the word flagrant, and I think people think about that word and they think basketball, right? They think flagrant fouls, and in a lot of ways, this is very similar to the flagrant situation, at least in the NBA, where they have a flagrant one, which is. That's a hard foul. That's something that but you don't get thrown out of the game. And there's flagrant 2, which is I think they term excessive violence or something, and you're immediately ejected. Basically, if you throw a punch, more or less. But it's like it's immediate ejection. So I do think that's really interesting that the NCAA and the UIL and kind of have made sure that it's not because ultimately it sounds like it's you guys are in favor of this because you are not suddenly thrust into a position where it's all or nothing, basically.
Right.
Because the penalty is so severe that if a player, let's say it normally would have been a non-flagrant call, but you're, oh boy, it's real close, I'm going to throw the flag. Well, on replay, if this is getting shown on Channel 5 or whatever that night, people are going to look at that and go, why was he thrown out of the game? And then you're thinking, oh my gosh, I got that kid kicked out for 2 quarters, and you've impacted the game. Because I know we've talked about the last thing you want to do is put yourself in the middle of something. So it seems like this is the kind of rule that's going to give you guys a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more comfort in throwing the flag and making sure that the spirit of the rule, which is supposed to be about safety, gets enforced.
Yeah. Well, and the coaches brought this to the football rules committee back in April with that same argument of, we only have replay in the state championship. We don't have it in every other game. So therefore, when we have a targeting foul call and then we go back and look at it the next morning on a huddle clip and say, oh, wow, he didn't get him in the head. He got him here in the shoulder, but that view from that official looked like he got him in the head.
Right.
So that's where that comes into play of, okay, it's not as severe. It's not going to penalize that kid for something that may not have happened. Mm-hmm. So it's a good thing.
Let's talk about the A&M LSU rule, which is, let's be honest, that's what the rule is. That is after the fifth extra period or beginning of the fifth extra period.
Beginning of the fifth.
It's one play. It's a 2-point conversion, basically, instead of starting from the 25.
Yep.
I'm very interested in what you guys think. Obviously, you're going to enforce the rules that are given to you, regardless. But what are your thoughts on this rule change? I know in the end, how many games are going to go to a fifth overtime? I don't know if we've had one in Texas high school football in at least 3 years, and we're talking about thousands of games. But I'm interested, kind of from your perspective, as somebody who think about these types of things a lot. What you're interested in?
I don't know that's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
We do typically. I've had a few overtime games. They usually last one period. Mm-hmm. Usually they're usually over pretty quick, maybe 2. This situation, it does those games. Is going to keep those teams from long, tiresome things.
Potentially dangerous.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another piece of that is after the second overtime and the fourth overtime, we'll have a 2-minute timeout. Which was something new that they added to the rule also. So kind of goes to that, making sure the players are safe and ready to go. One thing to note, 6-man football, 1A football, they won't start at the 3. They will start at the 7-yard line. And they must run a play and not kick. So that's a little difference between 11-man and 6-man football.
It picks up.
That's awesome.
And
I love plays from the 7-yard line. I think that's my favorite thing. The one snap from the 7.
From someone who has worked a 7 overtime game in college, where if that 5th overtime, I would have killed for that. I would have killed for that rule because we were in southern Arkansas, Magnolia, Arkansas, early season, hot, humid, and it was 10:30 at night. It was a TV game, and even the TV people are like from the sideline, is this thing ever going to end?
Can we get out of here?
Knock somebody down. Get them in the end zone. Let's get this over with. So I'm glad to see it. We'll see how it plays out. I think for districts that have positive points, that might be something that may need to be looked at later because now you're limiting that point differential of what you have to win by, but that's an argument for another day. For right now, I don't think we're going to get to that far where I'll be surprised to see a 5 overtime game.
Yeah.
Now I'm just saying, because I've said it. Now we're going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen like in a
and
state.
It's probably going to happen in week 1.
Yeah.
Somewhere. And we'll hear all about
It's
it.
either going to happen week 1 or it's going to happen in the 5A Division II state championship
there you
game, and then it's going to be.
But hey, we have a rule for it now.
Exactly, you have a rule for it. Bill Theodore and Rod McLain of Tasso talking officiating. I think I speak on behalf of all Texas high school football dorks. when I say thank you guys for everything that you do. You guys help us to enjoy the sport that we like, and the games literally wouldn't go on without you. So I will say thank you to that. If people are listening to this and they're going, I've always thought about being an official, how can they get involved?
Go to www.taso.org, and at the very top of the page, there's the application process membership, and read about us. Click on it. It'll take you to a membership link to where you can sign up and go right ahead. Put you in contact with your local chapter for any sport anywhere in the state, and we'll be glad to have you.
Okay.
For you coaches that are listening, there's a bunch of coaches that officiate on the side, so you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, you can be a true football junkie.
Yes, you can.
Every angle of this.
Yes, you can.
It's taso.org. Make sure you check it out. Rod McLain and Bill Theodore. Guys, thanks for stopping by. And what are you guys doing 1 year from now?
You having another roundtable?
I mean, we could see.
I'm
We've done it 2 times in a row.
We'll do it 2 times.
Well, I will tell you, a year from now,
Uh-huh.
it will be probably the second week of scrimmages again. So it'll be gearing up for working scrimmages and getting ready for next week, week 1.
When are you going to come work a scrimmage with us?
Oh my gosh.
Let me tell you something.
I am extremely comfortable.
I was at a venue last week where it was a scrimmage going on, and they had a person from the television media there in stripes and shorts wearing a GoPro camera on his hat, and he was working a varsity scrimmage. And I mean, this guy was all in, and he said, I really had a love for the game before being a sportscaster. Now I'm in. It's going to be a career move here. So anytime you want to work, we'll provide you the shirt. We'll provide you the shorts. You bring your own jock strap and shoes, and you're in.
I got to be honest. I don't know if I can pull up the stripes. That's the thing that's really holding me back.
Anybody? How do you know until you try?
All right. I'll have my people get in touch with you.
And think about the story that would be at the next Officials Roundtable, that you can sit down and say, guys, last week I worked this scrimmage with these guys. See? Max will be there to film.
You had to do this.
I know.
I'm always up for any opportunity to embarrass Greg.
He's in. It's a done deal. Sign him up.
This is the last Officials
Here's your
Roundtable.
flag.
Appreciate Bill Theodore and Rod McLain coming by. Guys, appreciate your time. Let's do it again next year.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.